In a vast country like the United States, people might imagine everything is connected by highways, airports, and modern communication networks. But that's not always the case. There are many places that feel like they exist in a different world, remote, far from crowds, and hard to reach. Some are perched on mountain peaks, others are stuck on isolated islands, and some are locked deep within the wilderness with no road access. Despite their isolation, these places hold unique stories of how people survive, adapt, and even build communities in locations that seem to have been forgotten by the map. Let's explore 20 of the most isolated towns and places in America to see what life is like at the far edges of the country. First, let's fly to Alaska. Here lies a town that truly deserves the title of the most isolated city. Barrow, now known as Utqiaġvik, is the northernmost point in the United States. Living above the Arctic Circle means facing extreme conditions, long winters, freezing temperatures, and 65 days without sunlight. The town has no highway access to the mainland. Everything has to be flown or shipped in, and that depends heavily on often unpredictable weather. Flights can be suddenly canceled due to snowstorms. Even so, Barrow is more than just a dot hidden on the map. The Iñupiat community living here continues their whale hunting traditions and stays in tune with the Arctic rhythm. What may seem like isolation to outsiders is, for them, a unique part of their identity that must be preserved. If Barrow is trapped in ice, this town is surrounded by the barren mountains of Nevada and Idaho. Its remoteness is extreme, with no signs of civilization for 100 miles in any direction. Jarbidge is a small town that once hosted a gold mining boom in the early 20th century. But when the mines closed, only a handful of homes and a winding road connecting it to the outside world remained. It's accessible by car, but only via narrow roads that are snow-covered for most of the year. When winter arrives, the town is virtually sealed off, and residents rely entirely on the supplies they've stocked up. For some, the isolation of Jarbidge is a curse, but for others, it's the main appeal: the silence and freedom away from the distractions of the modern world. Back to Alaska, this time far out in the Aleutian Islands. A dock stands on what used to be a military base. During World War II, the island was home to thousands of troops, but now only a few hundred people remain. Closer to Russia than to the American mainland, a dock can only be reached by limited flights or cargo ships. The island offers stunning views: rocky mountains, windy beaches, and abandoned military buildings. But the isolation here isn't just about distance. It's also about the feeling of living at the end of the world. There are no major stores, no long highways connecting it to other towns, only a vast ocean in between. Meanwhile, in northeastern Montana, you'll find endless open plains. That's where Glasgow sits, a small town often called one of the most remote from any major city in America. The closest big city is Billings, more than 200 miles away. Glasgow does have a small airport, but that doesn't take away the feeling of being cut off. Long highways stretch through quiet grasslands and wheat fields. Daily life revolves around a tight-knit community where everyone knows each other. In winter, snowstorms can bring travel to a complete stop. Yes, The isolation in Glasgow isn't as dramatic as on an island or in the mountains. It's the quiet vastness of the land that creates a sense of distance. Deep in the Grand Canyon lies Supai, a village that's truly one of a kind. There are no roads leading here. To reach it, people have to hike 8 miles down a trail, ride a horse, or take a helicopter. Supai is home to the Supai tribe, who have long protected their ancestral land. Newspapers, food, and even mail are still delivered the traditional way, by mule. For the locals, this isolation is simply a way of life that's been passed down through generations. But for visitors, Supai feels like another world, quiet, far from cell phone signals, and surrounded by towering cliffs and stunning waterfalls. Back in the Aleutian Islands, there's a world-famous port, Dutch Harbor. You might recognize the name from the documentary series Deadliest Catch. But behind its reputation as a major crab fishing hub, Dutch Harbor is far from the mainland. The nearest big city is Anchorage, more than 800 miles away. That's why Dutch Harbor is a clear example that isolation doesn't always mean silence. It can also mean battling wild nature. The weather here is so unpredictable that trips can rarely be planned with certainty. Storms, strong winds, and thick fog can force planes to turn back. Even so, life here continues. Fishermen head out to sea each season, risking their lives for the catch that supports the local community. If Dutch Harbor is a busy port, Hyder offers a different scene. Quiet, tiny, and often called the friendliest ghost town. Located at the southeastern tip of Alaska, the only road access is from Stewart, a town in Canada. Ironically, there's no road connection from the rest of the United States. Hyder has its own charm. Tourists come here to watch bears catching salmon in the river. But outside tourist season, life slows down dramatically. With just a few dozen residents, everyone knows everyone. In the end, Hyder's isolation isn't just geographical, it's also symbolic. Imagine a US town that's closer to Canada than to its fellow Americans. And finally, still in Alaska, near Glacier Bay National Park, is a small town called Gustavus. Though surrounded by stunning views of glaciers and mountains, access to this town is limited. There's no main highway linking Gustavus to other major towns, so travel here is only possible by small plane or ferry. For locals, that's just a part of daily life. Stores carry only the basics, and supplies come in by boat when the weather allows. But it's that very isolation that makes Gustavus the gateway to one of the world's most untouched and breathtaking national parks. As many would agree, people don't come here for convenience or fear of missing out. Most come to experience the peace of truly wild nature. Moving far southwest, the Texas desert is home to a famous art town, Marfa. At first glance, calling it isolated might seem odd, since the town often draws artists, tourists, and even celebrities. But its location says it all. The nearest major city, El Paso, is hundreds of miles away. Endless desert roads stretch on before finally reaching Marfa. Yes, it's this remoteness that makes the town unique artists are drawn to Marfa because of its quiet, turning it into a massive canvas for contemporary art installations. For locals, though, the isolation feels more real. Prices for basic needs can be high, medical trips take hours, and desert storms can shut the town down. Marfa proves that isolation can fuel creativity while still being a challenge to daily life. If Marfa is alive with tourists, Mentone is quite the opposite. It's the only settlement in Loving County, known as the least populated county in all of America. With fewer than 100 residents, Mentone feels like a ghost town in the middle of vast West Texas. There are no schools, no hospitals, and even grocery stores are extremely limited. Residents have to travel dozens of miles for basic needs. While roads to Mentone exist, they are long and empty, making the journey feel like a trip to the end of the world. Here, isolation is deeply felt, not because of mountains or seas, but simply due to the absence of people. Next is the Maze. Located in Canyonlands National Park, Utah, the name fits perfectly. Towering red rock cliffs form a giant labyrinth, making visitors feel lost in another world. There are no regular roads into this area. Only four-wheel drive vehicles with skilled drivers can get through, and even then, it takes hours. The maze is so remote that very few tourists come. Those who do must bring full supplies, detailed maps, and survival skills for the desert. It feels less like a tourist spot and more like untouched wilderness. Nature rules here, and humans are just passing through. From Utah's desert, we move to the northern border of Minnesota, right by Lake of the Woods. This is where Angle Inlet lies, a small community notable for its location. To reach it by road, you have to first drive through Canada, then re-enter the US. This isolation creates a unique way of life. The school in Angle Inlet is the only one in the area with just a handful of students. Fishermen live off the lake, and the roads are nearly empty. In winter, the frozen lake becomes a natural route, but also a trap when snowstorms roll in. Much like Angle Inlet, Ekalaka is a hidden town tucked away in southeastern Montana. With only a few hundred residents, getting here requires a long drive down endless rural roads. The nearest major city is hundreds of miles away, making Ekalaka feel truly distant from modern civilization. Yet, its isolation comes with a unique natural history. Ekalaka is known as one of the richest areas for dinosaur fossils. A small local museum holds prehistoric relics, proving that this land was once home to giant creatures millions of years ago. So even in its remoteness, Ekalaka carries a big story, not about people, but about the earth itself. Meanwhile, in the heart of the Black Hills, Elk Creek offers more than just isolation. It's not a big town, but a small community surrounded by forests and rolling hills. If you wonder why it's on this list, it's not just about distance, but also the overpowering presence of nature. Thick woods, narrow roads, and a lack of modern infrastructure make life here slow-paced. Locals enjoy a peace that's hard to find elsewhere. But isolation also means limits. Healthcare, education, and entertainment are far from reach. To outsiders, living in Elk Creek might feel like stepping back in time. But for the residents, that's where the true value of life lies. Not all isolation comes from distance. Some places are cut off because of the extreme nature around them, like Hell's Canyon on the Idaho-Oregon border. For those who don't know, this is the deepest canyon in the United States, even deeper than the Grand Canyon. Towering cliffs rise on both sides of the Snake River, forming a landscape that's nearly impossible to cross. Most of the area can only be reached by boat or by hiking steep trails. There are no major roads connecting the whole region. Living near Hell's Canyon means relying on yourself, far from modern comforts. And the name Hells fits, not because it's hell itself, but because of the incredible challenge it poses to anyone who tries to call it home. Next is a small island town called Isle o' Haut, off the coast of Maine. It's no ordinary island. Part of it belongs to Acadia National Park, but it's much more remote than the rest of the park. To get here, you have to take a ferry, and the schedule is limited and weather dependent. Life is simple and full of limitations. With only a few hundred residents, many depend on the sea to make a living. In winter, Atlantic storms can cut off the island from the mainland for days. Still, it's that very isolation that gives Isle o' Haut a peace that's almost impossible to find in the big cities of the eastern US. Have you ever heard of Crested Butte? Known as a ski resort town, it may appear well off. But make no mistake, its isolation is very real, especially in winter. Roads often get buried in snow, cutting Crested Butte off from nearby areas. In summer, the town turns into a paradise for hikers and nature lovers. But once winter hits, residents must be well stocked with supplies. Despite the isolation, Crested Butte has managed to keep its classic Colorado charm. Small streets, colorful buildings, and a close-knit community. Equally remote for Appalachian Trail hikers, the name, the 100-mile wilderness in Maine, is both intimidating and thrilling. This 100-mile stretch is the most isolated section of the entire legendary hiking route. No highways cross it, no stores, no towns, just pure wilderness as far as the eye can see. Hikers must carry everything they need. Once inside, there's no easy way to turn back. The isolation in the 100-mile wilderness isn't meant for permanent living. It's a test. Can humans survive without modern help, relying only on strength and endurance? If Maine has its long wilderness trail, Idaho holds something even larger, the Frank Church River of No Return Wilderness. This is one of the biggest wilderness areas in the United States, covering millions of acres of mountains, valleys, and wild rivers. The name River of No Return comes from the Salmon River's strong currents that made it nearly impossible for early explorers to return. Even today, most of the area has no roads. Only small planes and boats can reach certain points. Here, isolation reaches its peak. not just far from cities, but truly a world that can only be conquered with courage. At the end of this journey, we arrive at a water world, the Boundary Waters Canoe area in Minnesota. This region is made up of thousands of lakes, all connected and surrounded by thick boreal forests. There are no motor vehicle roads. The only way to explore is by paddling a canoe from lake to lake, sometimes even carrying it across small strips of land. The silence here runs deep. Only birds, water, and paddles touching the lake break the stillness. For those who come, the Boundary Waters offers pure isolation, not because they're trapped, but because they choose to step away from the modern world to feel closer to nature. Yes, these 20 towns and places show that isolation in America comes in many forms. Some are locked in ice in the north, some trapped in deserts, and others hidden behind mountains or on small islands. Many require endurance, others offer peace, and some even inspire creativity. In the end, isolation isn't just about distance from big cities. It's also about how people adapt to the wild, to hardship, and even to loneliness. From Barrow to the Boundary Waters, we see that at the edges of the country, people still live, finding meaning in remoteness and preserving the stories of how humans survive in the quietest corners of the land.